Hello, welcome to the monthly tarot and tea. I invited my friend Karine here to
Hi,
chat
Luna.
with me. Hello, Karine. So, we're going to be talking about the solar season in Pisces, which is about from February 19th to March 20th. So Pisces season, we'll be talking about the archetype in astrology, as well as the archetype related in the tarot, which is the moon card. So I asked Karine to come here and speak to me about Pisces energy, because she really works with this energy in her work and with her clients. So I'll just let her introduce what she does for work.
Thank you, Luna. So, I work in a recovery center for people struggling with addiction. And as we were talking the other day, I realized like it's really, really connected to the energy that is on right now. So even though I do not know much about that energy in general in your way, I do know how I see it often in my clients. So I'm very excited to be here.
Too. Yes. So as I invite people on, it's not necessarily in the knowing of the archetypes, although I'm going to be presenting those themes. But yes, Kathleen is really working a lot with this archetype and these energies. So Pisces season. So Pisces is a mutable water sign. So as I've said in for other discussions, mutable is the quality of adaptability, of integration, and so we have again the cardinal sign that starts off the season. We're in winter season. So we started off in Capricorn. We went into the fixed sign of Aquarius in this season, and now we're ending the winter season in the mutable sign of Pisces. So the cardinal initiates, the fixed sign maintains and builds, and then the mutable sign is the one that kind of integrates all that it's learned. It takes all these elements together. And then in Pisces, particularly, it's the last sign in the zodiac. So we go through the journey starting in spring with Aries, and then we come all the way through the whole journey of the archetypes into Pisces. So it's a really big, interesting energy where we get to go from the individual all the way through the journey back into the collective consciousness. So Pisces is related to that oceanic, because it's a water sign as well. So it's really related to this like ocean feeling of not only are we a drop in the water of the ocean, but we are the ocean in a drop. There's this kind of disillusion of the identity as an individual into the identity of being one with the entire ocean. So being one with all of existence. It is such a beautiful, big energy of feeling a part of something bigger than us, feeling a part of everything. So it's a really beautiful sign. So being a water sign, it's connected to emotions, it's connected to intuition, it's connected to mysticism in the water element. And then we're looking at particularly Pisces, which is really a lot in the fantasy, dreams, imagination. It's a really beautiful sign to get back into, yeah, this kind of like innocent space in a way. And it's actually very countercultural, as you know, we're very kind of limited in that space as we like grow up and start working in the world. Dreams and imagination are so vital to like our well-being. And then we get kind of, oh, that's like too big of a dream or things like that. So there's these kind of messaging that we're working with here. So coming back into like really honoring this part of ourselves is a beautiful thing that happens in Pisces. So it's really this wisdom of what we can, what this kind of space has to offer us. how valuable it is to dream and how valuable it is to be in our imagination, be in our emotions, and really understand how to flow with that. And so in this talk, of course, it's Pisces season, so it's going to be a little less structured and not so, earth-based. So I apologize in advance for being non-linear, as Pisces is very non-linear. It's not static. It's very like going with the big waves, and so that's what we're doing here.
And there's definitely a lot of wave at the center right now. Like I'm laughing listening to you because I really see how chaotic and tide related kind of the group is right now that we have at the center. It's when you mention about the dynamic that you're one drop into the ocean, but you're also like the ocean in one drop. Right now I feel like a lot of people, they're focusing on everybody else except themselves, and it really gets a lot of movement. It's really hectic at the center right now because of, I guess, like you said, it's really anything but lineal. And yeah, people, they I see like there's a lot of emotion coming up, so definitely being affected by that.
Especially in the winter season, like we just in the winter, it's so important to feel, well, in the northern hemisphere, in the winter season, it's really, again, that time of cocooning. Like we have reached past the middle of winter, so there is a kind of warming up, there is a kind of like, we feel the springtime coming, but we're still in that kind of like slowing down, introspective energy, which is also very much in Pisces. And we haven't like fully started the action. We're still really in the feeling and the dreaming of what's to come. And so that could be a little destabilizing for those of us who really like to know the like next steps and the kind of more linear and the kind of more like, in the physical world. But we're still floating around here in Pisces season, which could, feel a little destabilizing when we're not so much worse used to that energy, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the moon card, which is the card that's related in tarot to Pisces. So I'll just present that energy, and then Karine's going to give us some insight, because what I really like to do with these talks too is to give like these ideas, or like to give you a sense of how the tarot, it's not just this concept, it really is something that happens in life, like how this energy presents itself and how we actually work with it in the manifest form, how we actually relate to this archetype in a way that is embodied, in a way that we can really learn the wisdom of these energies and be able to apply it in our relationship to all of these themes. So the moon card is very much, and Pisces of course, very much about the subconscious. So when we think of the moon, it has its phases, first of all, like new moon all the way to full moon and back to new moon. So it's again not linear. It's very cyclic and very spiralic, and again with those waves, right? And then we're looking into the subconscious. So the moon is something that reflects the sunlight, right? So it's not a direct kind of energy. It really is something that reflects back to us, right? And so that kind of mirrors the empathic qualities also of Pisces, where we can really see ourselves in one another, and we can even kind of lose ourselves in one another. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So there is so much wisdom to this sign. And then I want to talk about where we can kind of get trapped, or what are the kind of challenges of this, and then what are the antidotes, and Karine will give us her insight into that. So the moon is a very healing card. It's very much about the shadow, about integrating the shadow parts of us. It's very like unknown energy. It's very unmanifest. And the moon really invites us to look at these subconscious parts of ourselves that are actually what is driving a lot of our behavior. Like we can have these conscious intentions of what we'd like to like do. But then, you know, sometimes like sabotage comes up, and we're like, why do I keep doing that or running into these blocks? And it's because there's really this deeper current of subconscious belief that's underneath there. And so the moon really invites us to go into our deep subconscious world and look at these parts of ourselves that often like we will fear and will like push away. And so we push it away into our shadow, because it's parts of ourselves that we don't accept. And oftentimes this is learned, right? We don't, when we come into the world and we're babies and we're just expressing, right? But it's over our conditioning, through our family life, through our culture, society, like what we learned, that we're like, ooh, this part is not allowed, or this part is not good. So I need to like stuff that down there, stuff that down here. And so the moon is a beautiful opportunity to go within, to slow down, and to really look at these parts of ourselves that we have shoved away because we judged it as, you know, I can't be accepted for that, or it's dangerous to feel these things, or whatever, because again, we're talking about emotions, right? And so a lot of times it will be related to emotions that we're not mirrored, or we're not fully accepted, like in parts of ourselves that
They weren't
have really
allowed.
big, like
Yeah.
really big and took up space, right? And so we're really looking at that part in this. So what happens, and I'll let Karine expand on this a little bit more with, for example, an extreme, a more like extreme version of it would be like when we have addictions that really impede like our functioning in life, right? And so it would be these pains in ourselves that are not met and not healed. And then it will be a form of escapism. So there's obviously like a huge range of escapism, and most of us have those things where we will distract ourselves with, you know, doom scrolling on Instagram, or like whatever it is. We'll like distract ourselves with, you know, food, or like, you know, screens, or
Just
whatever it
people in
is.
general, avoiding to look at yourself by
Mm-hmm.
doing, by, in French, on appelle ça la l'ivresse mentale. So just keep yourself so busy that it makes you feel dizzy almost at some point.
Yeah.
Just so you don't have to address what's up because you don't have room for that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like looking at something else, distracting ourselves so we don't have to feel the pain, so we don't have to look at those places of ourselves that we feel are not acceptable, or that are too painful to sit with. And so I'm going to pass it over to Karine to talk about how we develop these kind of coping strategies that are not necessarily beneficial for us. You know, it's just our way of trying to survive in these pains that we weren't allowed to like feel.
And you mentioned it pretty well. Like, that's pretty much it. Those are, that is regarding if it's addiction, lying, crying for no reason, because you've learned those behaviors serve the thing, right? So you've learned that, for example, if I'm crying when I get yelled at, I will get comfort. Maybe, but maybe it doesn't apply no more as an adult, but as a kid, you've learned that that would work, right? To be answered in needs, even though it's not necessarily the good need being addressed or a show, at least you would be answered at some point. So regardless of the patterns, the behaviors, those are still learned from, like you said, my environment, my social surrounding, my family's school where I grew up, whatever culture I'm coming from. And into the shadow work, or like you said, the moon really invites us to look at those unconscious pattern. Why am I always like running into the same walls? Why am I attracting always the same kind of partner? What makes me unable to get out of like the vicious cycle? And it comes from a lot of the stuff we've learned as we were a kid. Like you mentioned, you said so many things. I was like ready to respond when I got lost in it. So yeah, basically we learn those skills from our ego to keep us alive, but they're not necessarily serving us still. um and as we grow, it can evolve into, for example, maybe I stop seeing people all the time to keep myself busy, but now I'm binge watching every day a show. Maybe it's the same show over and over again to reduce my anxiety because I already know what's coming up. It comes in different ways and forms, but in the end, if we don't take time to look at those things that might be not serving us, just like the moon is going to keep on coming, coming, and coming. So to make it in a conscious way now.
Bringing like the consciousness to the
Yeah.
subconscious, and that's like a really important theme of the moon card. It's really bringing the light of consciousness into the subconscious spaces that we're not really aware of.
That's my favorite part in working in recovery, to have talks with and you mentioned to the generation, I guess. So most of people that comes to the center for addiction are older than me, right? Like my parents' age. And it's fun to make them understand, like, for sure you never learned that, because it wasn't even something that I've learned, and I'm 2 generations younger than you. So imagine how deep down it's shoved and increased in your head that you don't do certain things, or you can cry, or you can do this or that because men's don't do it. So putting light on stuff like this and reevaluate, does that belief still serve me? Yes, no. Where did that come from? Where does that come from? What can I do with that? Because I can choose to keep it on, but what good is it serving me? So to really put some light on those mental beliefs and to undo the wall brick by brick. But when you have the brick in your hand, what the hell am I doing with it? Do I break it? Do I put it aside? Like, will it still serve me? That's up to the person, right? So, because in some situation, every little brick I've put in my wall served me at some point. So it's hard to let go of those things. Because, and just like addiction, it had serve a purpose. So how do we unconstruct those things brick by brick?
Yeah, I love that. Deconstructing the beliefs that we acquired through this conditioning and through these kind of environments that we grew up in, or that we
belief patterns, mental pattern, like cognitive pattern, but also like physical. If, for example, I got used to coming back from work, stop here, and then do that, and then get home and use. Well, do I really need to still do it in the same order? If not, maybe if I do keep it when I'm trying to recover, even though I just end the drinking or using section at the end, well, my body's still going to get in autopilot, right? So to be mindful. So again, keep on shining with the light, to put a little bit of light in every situation that I just don't get mindful about it. So I guess you mentioned a bit sooner, like little keys to get rid of those. Mindfulness is definitely something, but it can become very exhausting at some point to always questioning yourself and like questioning. But those tune in moments with yourself, those little, okay, what's up in me? What is my body telling me? What am I feeling? What's that little feeling I have inside? Like, okay, when was it triggered by this situation? Okay, well, maybe I don't have the words on the emotion stuck up, but I can retrace it now. Does it serve me? Am I safe? That's a big question. Am I safe? Yes, no? Like, will arriving 5 minutes at work really put me in a danger situation? My brain won't make the difference by arriving late at work or having a bear in front of me. The physiological is still the same, but is it needed? No. Okay, I can let go of it. But you need to ask yourself those little things. And as it goes in recovery, I guess, the more you put time into recognition of those very low variation in your body, the easier it becomes to let it go as it does, so you don't accumulate. Because when you pile and pile and pile and pile and pile, it becomes so heavy, so intense, don't even know where to start. Like, I need to show it. So like, I see this here, and the more you accumulate stuff, it becomes just one big messy ball. Like, what strings to wear? We don't know. But if I take time to just address one thing at a time, one little bit of it, you don't end up with a big mashup ball of emotion.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the confusion, and that's where we get lost so much in that. It just becomes very overwhelming, and then it's like, woo, a Pandora's box, So that's the thing with the healing process. And like, I really want to bring in that element of like deep compassion too, and like it requires so much
deep compassion softness for yourself.
Yes,
because that's something I tell the clients all the time. You guys are all people have art. I don't think I've met one person in addiction that is 100% selfish. Like most, especially we see it a lot in the women coming for addiction recovery, because they give, but they have nothing left for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So being empathetic to yourself, or men like construction workers who've run businesses all their life, like they didn't learn empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So telling them, yeah, be the bigger person for yourself, be your own parent, like the fuck man are telling me. So it's funny how we have to revisit the concept we have of certain things that weren't even a thing back then, and when they were kids, and like have them visit and revisit the theme, for example, of empathy, especially self-empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you care for everybody else in the group, but what about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do to take care of yourself today?
Yeah. Yeah, it really starts within, from within.
Yeah.
And that's another great point too about empathy. And I'm just gonna like take it back a little bit, but what I wanted to bring up too about empathy and like being sensitive and all of these things is that the empathy that Pisces feels could be a little bit of one of those parts that are challenging, right? Because again, if you feel so overwhelmed and always trying to kind of like be the martyr and like adapt to your environment and like take care of others, again, like you said, it's so much giving and not like being able to receive that for yourself. That's where you can really get lost in the place of emotions. And time and time again we hear, if you're on the plane, like put on your mask first and then put on someone else's mask. So it's really that idea of like you need to not you need to, but it's much more beneficial to and it's needed for your long-term kind of like well-being to really like offer that compassion and empathy for yourself and then you're able actually to show up more fully for others, because you'll build up resentment and all these things. But what I really wanted to bring it back to is that there's a lot of these qualities too, like when you see, like I said, it's a spectrum. So addiction and like escapism and stuff, we will have like varying degrees of that. And from my work as well, what I see is that people who tend to be more sensitive and tend to be more altruistic and be really empathetic, they tend to fall into those patterns, and they tend to go deeper on the spectrum of escapism and pain, because they're taking on so much of themselves, and they're losing sight of themselves in that. It's like I remember telling a client, it's like like you're helping, like you see everyone else around you, but like and like imagine like you're kind of like in your circle, and then like there's people around you, but like you're there too, like we can't lose sight of ourselves as a part of the collective as well. So there is this kind of identity dissolution with Pisces that's beautiful, in the sense that we have this capacity to feel at one with everyone and at one with our environment, but we don't want to lose sight of ourselves in that either. Like we are a part of it as well. So that's why both of those sides are really, really important. And then people who tend to go deep into addictions that are more harmful and impactful on their lives, like substance abuse, for example, they tend to be people who are much more sensitive or lack the tools of dealing with emotions and regulating their nervous system. So I wanted to pass the mic on to Karine to talk about like what are some things, for example, that people who tend to be more sensitive or empathetic, what are some things that they can start looking at to really start to take care of themselves and address these tools and these skills that they haven't learned, right? So that's where the compassion comes in. It's like, how can you expect yourself to be good at this, or like it's a practice and it's a process. So if you've never learned this, then of course, like, it's going to take time to learn, just like any other skill, right? But just to highlight the importance of these skills in just sitting with our emotions and regulating our nervous systems and understanding that mechanism and how it's actually supernatural to feel fear of the unknown, right? Like in the moon card, it's very much about the unknown. And what Karine was describing when she was saying, you know, it's like we get into these patterns and we watch shows over and over, right? Because it's calming to the nervous system. We know what to expect, right? And when the ego mind knows what to expect, it settles us down because we're like, okay, I know this is A, B, C, D. But in reality, it's like, if we want to grow and we want to heal, there's a lot of unknown we're dealing with there. So it's super natural to feel that fear when we're start going to unknown places, when we don't know what these emotions are going to bring up. So
there's so many things I could point on that. So basically, your question was like how to regulate, I guess, or how to sit
like
with it.
What do you find in the clientele that you work with? Like, do you see that they're more empathetic and sensitive, and like
absolutely, they're hypersensitive, most of them, or in denial that they are hypersensitive, which is very interesting. But they get overwhelmed by everybody's situation. They get
over involved maybe too
so much. My God, guys, keep your eyes on yourself, please.
Eyes on your own paper. That's it. Like that's when you get lost and you get overwhelmed by taking on all these things.
And not only that, but like by taking care of everybody else, I am not looking at myself.
Also,
so
escapism there.
Another way
a
to
little
escape.
trap.
Exactly. So it's not rare that we have to do the group intervention in the morning. Like, guys, what the hell's going on? Why are you bugging or taking part of this conflict that has nothing to do with you? Why are you even being disturbed by this or that situation? You have nothing to do with that part. So one of the things I have personally started putting a lot of my in place for myself too is ask myself, when a situation comes and bug me, what does it tell about me? It doesn't say anything about the other person. Who the fuck cares? Like, what does it say about me? What fear is it shining on? Like, what it's funny because I really started to put that in application like less than 2 weeks ago when you're telling me about the energy.
So aligned.
Yeah, so aligned. So really, what does it tell about me? It says nothing about the other person. Like, anyway, I'm not here to like do the procès or whatever of this person, but I'm here to work on myself. What does it tell about me? So to sit with myself and having those thoughts. One of the things that often is problematic in any relationship is communication, right? Misunderstanding, thinking that we already know what the person is thinking, or like doing fake addition in their jumping to conclusions, stuff like that. So cognitive distortion in general.
Like projection
is part of that too, but so cognitive distortion is really like I get an idea in my head and I'm sure it's reality, but based on what? So as tough as it can be, is really to re-questionate yourself and ask yourself question like, how is this relevant? Like, okay, I'm feeling anxiety based on what? Seriously, based on what? So questioning yourself, it's hard to just do it out of the bloom. So really get help by a therapist, a good friend of yours. We all know some people that are not as comfortable with emotion as maybe would like us or would like them to be. So really pick the people to who you open up to. I know if I'm angry, I won't contact one of my friend in particular because she's gonna be mad with me and ready to slash tires. Like, and we're going nowhere with that, right?
Yeah.
And I know if I'm sad, I know exactly who to turn to because she has the space and the ability to receive my sadness because she's comfortable with her own.
Exactly.
So, so introspection plus. Journaling is really something we give a lot as a tool. Everybody that walks in, we give them like a little notebook, like this is your journal. There's a few questions you can ask yourself. And sometimes just put your pen on the paper and start writing. Just force yourself, write for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. Just let it be. And it really helped to ease the mind too. And to let to the surface what needs to pop up. Like I'm sure that's something you've mentioned every month or so, but your body is so wise. And the brain will just but bring to your consciousness what it needs to come at that specific time. If you have a list of emotion, you can just read them and you will cut your eyes at certain words that like, oh, okay, yeah, this is maybe reflecting more because you need the lexic. Is it a thing in English? The lexic, the vocabulary, like vocabulary.
Yeah.
You need to have the words to work on it because the more I have different words, the more I can connect those dots together and actually make a team out of it, and then a whole conversation. So de te renseigner, to really go and maybe look for information. So that's why sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I am not a big reader, so I like to have conversation like this. So get surround yourself with people, and that's a thing too. The human being is a
Mm.
social creature. Like, being isolated is a good way to get into the shadow and just drown in it, right? So surround yourself with people that are positive, that are bringing you what you're needed, not what you want. Big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So emotion, sit in your being comfortable to sit with your emotion, as uncomfortable as it may be. The more I let them be in the present moment, the less it will come back. You mentioned sooner, like there are tides or wave or emotions. If I just trying to box my emotion and repress it, it's like throwing a rock in it. The ripple effect is going to be so chaotic, it's going to be a freaking mess. Versus if I don't let the wall be and I just give it the space, it will fade away.
Mm-hmm.
So to stop trying to compress and repressing those emotions and just let them be, and there's a way of addressing emotions too. You don't have to punch a hole in the wall when you're angry. That's a learned behavior. That's not the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So really, having the assistance, I guess, with that, because it's freaking tricky, and your brain's gonna give you hundred and thousands of reasons to believe that this is true, because your ego is just like trying to sabotage you at some point. It's not serving a good purpose. It's not your higher self. It's the ego part. So I think being accompanied is really the best way to do it.
Absolutely, especially for people who haven't even touched that yet,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of the people
Oh
you
my
work
god.
with. So there's always a very important factor of feeling supported, right? Feeling supported and going out and learning these tools, being accompanied, having those safe spaces, justement. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really want to bring up you brought up the idea of environment, right? So people a lot of times who are rehabilitating from addictions, it's so important and pertinent to be removed from the environment for a little bit, because that's something that is really feeding their patterns. Like if you're in this, if there's a toxic work situation, or there are relationships you're in, or maybe like, there's so many environmental factors where if it just keeps repeating the environment in which you had to silence these things, then it's just going to continue, right? And if you're in these environments that keep feeding your patterns of escapism and sabotage and like all
Mm-hmm.
of this stuff, and you're not in environments where you feel safe and you feel seen, and you have someone who can help you process these things, either a
Mm-hmm.
friend or a therapist or whatever it is that is accessible to you and that you need, um, it's such a huge thing. And it's so,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we are social creatures, and so we really do need this sense of feeling safe and connected,
Belonging too, eh?
belonging. Yeah,
Mm.
one of my teachers said that, my somatic teacher said that we heal together, yes, so much of this is looking at ourselves, but ultimately we are social creatures, and we really do heal together when we learn that we can relate to ourselves and other people in this way, and that we're safe to be seen, and we're safe to be held, and it's safe to make mistakes, and it's safe to be learning, and it's safe to be in that vulnerability and in those environments. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is so, so key. We heal relationally in relation,
Yeah.
right? Like we
And
can't heal
no.
relationally if
And when you
we're
heal
alone.
yourself, most of the time, no, and it will push away people who are not interested in the
Hmm.
healing, and attract the right people in your life too. So without even like trying, at some point when I heal myself and I feel comfortable enough to have the space to share it, it helps other people to heal too. So it's the positive ripple effect. Instead of
Absolutely.
being like a vicious cycle, in French we call it like un cercle vertueux. So we take expansion.
Virtuous
Yeah,
cycle.
so we take
Yeah.
expansion instead of repressing.
Yes, I love that. And as I mentioned to you before this conversation, one of the people that I really look to for addiction and for trauma is Gabor Mate. And the things that he brought up in relation to addiction, and in relation to trauma, is the importance of connection and the importance of belonging. And that could be spiritual, but more just like feeling a part of something bigger than yourself, how important that is to our well-being, feeling like you belong with yourself and with others, and feeling a deep sense of connection. As Karine pointed out, it's a lot of this isolation with your own self and your own that we tend to box up when we're feeling uncomfortable things, and that creates more the vicious cycle. So it
Well,
really
especially if you're
is.
isolated, who's going to argue with you,
Yeah.
right? Who's going to deconstruct the thoughts that you took for not granted, but like as the truth, because it's a connective distortion. So your ego is going to say, yeah, that is a fact, but based on what? So the more I isolate, and so there's a difference too by isolating and like I'm always with people but not sharing anything. So it's part of like doing your work too, opening up. Like you need that human connection to, if you can be with people but not share anything, but you're not helping yourself either. So if I do have those conversations and real talks with people, I can actually view the situation in another perspective, maybe change my mind around it, find a better solution, a more long lasting solution for the same problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so such an importance in having these safe environments, having support, feeling seen. Because again, what Gabor Mate brought up a lot was, it's like when we grow up in an environment where parts of ourselves, and we're conditioned to like not have parts of ourselves come up, it's like we're trading in our authenticity for a sense of belonging, but ultimately we don't feel belonging because we're not authentically ourselves. So true belonging and true connection is when we can actually fully be authentically ourselves and be received in that. And that's where a lot of these behaviors of escapism and addiction come in, is when we feel not connected or not belonging.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add to that.
So yes, getting these kind of like skills, like Karine was saying, like a mindfulness, and understanding how to regulate our nervous system when we're feeling fear.
And
Yeah.
But those are all to be learned, because you've learned certain ways of doing it in the past, and it served you for a good time. But is it still accurate? Is it still serving me now? Are the consequences of my auto-regulation, can I still take it? Because you can keep on drinking alcohol, for example, or using drugs, but for how long?
Until there's detrimental effects on your life.
Or you can stop before that.
Yeah.
Like knowing in advance, because with the bright, or the part that's already highlighted with like science and stuff, you already know the consequences mostly of addiction. So knowing that, do you want to keep digging your grave or start working on yourself? But the answer belongs to the person in the case. Everybody doesn't have the same end of the barrel, so that's interesting too. For certain people, maybe losing your first job is enough, like, okay, I need to take my life back into control. For other people, it's death. So there's no right or wrong answer in that. Everybody has their own path to go through. So, but definitely get yourself like surrounding with who you can talk and just address the real topics.
Yeah, there's so much in that. So yeah, we talked about the importance of connection and belonging, being authentic, learning emotional like coping regulation, nervous system regulation.
I would add to practice radical acceptance.
Oh yes.
Because there's stuff that you will not be able to control or influence, and you just have to suck it up at some point, kind of. But the only place where I have control is on myself. So if I learn how to ease myself and just make the best out of it, that can be a big part. To not be in a resistance all the time. Like there's stuff that, okay, it's just, this is my new flow now, I have to move with it. So radical acceptance would be definitely something interesting to practice, and just getting more resilient to like the feeling of distress. because not everything can be solved in the moment. So that's where radical acceptance can come in, right? Maybe I have to, for example, I'm waiting for my plane ticket for Monday.
Yeah.
I have no control on that. Like, it is not in my hand, but I can stay anxious about it, or it is what it is. Like, let it be. And you know what? Maybe I'm not leaving Monday. So who knows?
Worst case scenario,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll be leaving on Tuesday. That's it.
Exactly. So that actually brings me to the last card in the tarot, because Pisces is related to the planet Neptune, which is related to the hangman. So Neptune, again, it's like the planet of, like, you know, illusions and dreams and imagination. And the way that we see in the hangman is like we're really in this moment of like deep need for surrender to the unknown. There is a sense of like a sacred pause in it. There's a sense of, again, surrendering to the flow. There's the quality that we need to go through this experience of like patience, right? So the hangman is really the sacred pause, and this moment of, yeah, like surrendering to the flow of what's happening. Like, we don't have control over every circumstance. We don't have control of things outside of us, but we do have the power to address how we relate with the things outside of us. So it's really this kind of reclaiming and surrendering, like a deep radical acceptance, a deep surrendering to the flow, to the tides. And again, that can bring up a lot of fear when we're used to controlling things and we're really used to that kind of mechanism. Again, getting support in the ways that you need for that. But these are the things that it brings up. So there's really so much beauty, so many qualities to this sign of really being in that sense of belonging to something greater than us, really being in that compassionate space for our process, really learning to like kind of like console ourselves in the fear of these things and have that like patience, have that understanding that, you know, it's a learning process for many of us to go into the subconscious and to start to familiarize with that and build our resilience in being in those spaces, and the importance of reaching out for support and putting ourselves in those nurturing, inviting environments so that we feel safe to be with those parts of ourselves, making the inner world a more welcoming environment to just be with what is. That is like the really core part of the moon, and even the hangman, just surrendering and learning to be with what is as it is. It's such a superpower. It sounds so you know, but it's not so easy. It's very it's a deep skill and a deep wisdom.
And it comes with like success at some point. Like, what I mean is, you won't have victory in every situation, right? There's some situations who are definitely tougher to accept sometimes, and it's just sometimes they come with a grief too. So, and grief is not linear. It's a lot of waves, come back, go back to a certain emotion, go back to another state, and you hope for the best to be just acceptation of it. But the process can be quite tough.
It's a very heroic journey into those energies, and that's why I really like the word resilience, because it's not linear. Again, it's not like, okay, once I've learned this, it's never going to come back. It's very much a process. It's very much just like, oh, like getting your muscles, you know. It's like, just because, you know, like if we're working out, for example, I really love to bring it back to the body sometimes too, where it's like I'm working out these muscles, and for example, like I'm learning to rock climb right now. So you know, yes, I'm gonna get better at the easier walls at first, but it doesn't mean I'm never going to slip on the easier walls, right? It's just I get better and better, and I have less and less slips with the same kind of level of difficulty, and then I move on to the next, and then, oh, that's a challenge, you know, another wave. And it's like, oh, I'm getting used to this, but it still doesn't mean that I'll never slip on the easy. You know, it's like it's a process, and it's just building that resilience where it gets kind of easier with the same level of things in a way, but not to say like easy. I don't really want to say easy because, oh my God, like, anger and sadness and grief and like, emotions, when you're sensitive can be so big. But it's really about, yeah, building that resilience and again, like bringing it back to the environment and the safe spaces and containers
Mm-hmm.
when we need to
Mm-hmm.
have that support. And like
Yeah.
we're.
And I guess it's part two of the moon effect, right? We're gonna have some shadow space being highlight by the light of the moon, but to allow not allow it, but accept it,
Mhm,
like because it's the part we don't want to see, but it's still there. It's gonna follow us, like the moon and
mhm.
the sun. They're just existing, so deal with it.
It just is
It just is.
reality.
So yeah,
It just
you
is
can
the reality.
yeah you can go outside, be resistant, and blame the moon, the sun for whatever, but they're still gonna keep on doing their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So integrating the shadow, very
Yeah.
much about integrating the shadow work in the moon card.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can go on forever, but we won't. So thank you so much for being here with us. I just wanted to, we're gonna link below where you can stay in contact with
Sure.
Karine, but she has a lot of new and exciting things coming up that she's offering. Would you like to speak about anything in
It's
particular?
too much a rough draft, but basically, if you guys need any assistance with being a company for addiction, just hit me up with the page that Luna's gonna link downstairs. Downstairs.
Downstairs.
Downstairs. Ouais. Francophone à côté. So,
Yeah, down below.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll
down
link you
below.
up with Karine, who has a lot of experience in this field and who can really be a beautiful support for your journey with that.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a couple of spaces left for my online tarot special ending at the end of February. So if you would like to dive deeper into the archetypes and really kind of integrate what we've learned in this winter season before we start off our springtime in Aries, I'd love to connect with you that way. I also have, for those in the Montreal, Quebec region, I have my new moon ritual at Tralala Yoga, Espace Tralala Yoga in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, coming up on March 8th. So we will really be diving into the Piscean energy in our bodies somatically, with cacao and sound bath. It's going to be a beautiful ritual, as always. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to chatting with you for the next season. And yeah, take such beautiful care of yourselves.
Thanks, Luna.
Thanks for
Thank you.
being here,
Yeah, thank you. I'm very
Catherine.
excited to have been here.
See y'all next time.